Thank you all for joining us. We're ready to get started. This is the Maximize Productivity Through More Effective Maintenance webinar. My name is Catherine Gutierrez, and I'll be hosting today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We're really excited to talk to you today about how you can improve and create more efficiency in your maintenance management plans. And so I'll walk you through a little bit today about who our participants are and what our format is going to be and how you can ask questions as well. So before I do that, I'd like to jump in by sharing a little bit about who Parsec is and what TrakSYS is, just to give you some background. The company Parsec was actually started in 1987, so we're going on 31 years at this point. We are deployed through our product TrakSYS in over 100 countries and in a variety of industries, including pharmaceuticals, food and beverage, packaged goods, automotive, and more. And if you peek over there on the right-hand side, you can see just a few of the logos of the companies that we currently have as clients. So please feel free, as we're going through the presentation today, to ask us questions about these specific companies as well as specific topics that you may have from a maintenance perspective. So who are we going to have talk with you today? I am actually joined by Corey Bodvarka. He will be our subject matter expert and the person that I will be interviewing today. Corey is our Director of Manufacturing Solutions, and he comes to us with more than 15 years of experience in a plant operating environment. As you can see here on the bottom, he's got very large and broad experience in lean manufacturing and Six Sigma at multiple Fortune 500 companies. And so he's got a great background to share with us a little bit about how we can put in those maintenance management programs that are effective and efficient. Then we'll also hear from Bill Rokos. He is our Vice President of Technology here at Parsec and helped build the Traxxas Platform that we have today. And as I mentioned, I'm your host. My name is Catherine Gutierrez. I'm our Director of Inside Sales. So let's talk a little bit about our format. We're going to do a really neat format today. It's an interview session. So we'd like to keep things a little more casual and comfortable. I'm going to interview Corey on his background. And I reached out to a few of you over the last couple weeks to kind of find out what your biggest feedback and challenges were that you faced in the maintenance environment. And I took those to Corey, and that's going to be our format for today, is asking him some of the concerns and challenges that you've faced in the past and getting his direct feedback on those. So we're looking to his background as a plant manager and his Six Sigma expertise to kind of tell us what we should be looking at when putting in a system. As far as questions go, as I mentioned previously, if you've got questions, we'd love to hear them and answer them for you. So please look at the right-hand side of your screen, enter in your questions into the chat function, the chat box right there. We'll get those, I'll write those down, and then I'm going to go ahead and ask Corey those questions at the end of the webinar. So that's a little bit about our format. We'll start with Corey, we'll bring in Bill, and then we'll take questions. So let's go ahead and kick things off. If you're ready, Corey, I'd like to start with asking a little bit about your career in manufacturing. So we mentioned you've got a pretty impressive career in manufacturing. Tell me a little about your work history and your background.
Yeah, Catherine, the majority of my my work history was within manufacturing. I've worked in manufacturing over 15 years in a variety of different roles, industries, plants. Started out in maintenance and engineering management, worked as a director of quality and process improvement for some consumer product companies. I've deployed Lean and Six Sigma globally in a couple Fortune 500 companies, as well as been a plant manager a handful of places, and kind of finished off in manufacturing as a director of operations for multiple sites before coming to work for Parsec.
Fantastic. So you've definitely got the background that we're looking for to give us some experience as a hands-on user of a system. Tell me, how did you originally get involved in maintenance?
It actually started out while I was in college, interning, setting up PM programs for a couple of different companies. And then after graduating from my mechanical engineering degree, I was hired on to a company to set up a PM program. The facility was a 24/7 operation, very equipment intensive, recycling automotive batteries. So we had, very abrasive and corrosive nature of the product that really just kind of tore up the machinery. On the back end, it was a foundry environment. So working with very heavy equipment that just has a lot of need for maintenance to run the facility efficiently.
So you mentioned that the operations were 24/7. That, I imagine, makes it a little bit hard to maintain your equipment. When did you find time to repair the equipment?
We pretty much worked on equipment when it broke down. At least that's how things started out until we got an organized PM program in place. And that was quite an undertaking. I remember the first time I sent a maintenance person out to the production area to do a PM. He kind of looked at me like I was crazy. He asked if are you serious? Do you want me to go work on a piece of equipment that isn't broke down? And that became the new norm, is going out, understanding how the equipment's running, the condition, doing cleaning, lubrication, inspection. In my lean background, I was taught cleaning is a form of inspection. As you wash your car and you go around and clean it by hand, you notice all the minor imperfections that you didn't notice while it was dirty. Mm-hmm. So starting to create that mindset of going out and listening to the machinery, understanding what it's saying and telling the organization, versus just running it until it breaks down. The more you can understand how the condition of the equipment is performing and acting and giving signs, the better you can now really plan your maintenance within the organization.
So that is a good point. I mean, it's definitely a shift from looking at things when they break down to going to a preventive and then to a predictive model when it comes to maintenance. I imagine that was a big adjustment for people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, at first it was a big adjustment. Any operational organization, they're really focused on just getting product out, on-time delivery, and you really got to work with the production folks to schedule time away from actually manufacturing, and that can be a big hurdle. So quickly you have to show the value of shutting down the machinery during planned time to really reduce that unplanned time, so you can get some wins and gain the confidence of your operations people. So that's kind of the starting point. As we shifted from a run to failure type environment and became more reliability focused, we started looking at downtime trends, using data. Again, I mentioned condition monitoring, and that was all kind of done visual back when I started doing this. Now there's much better things out there, but really grabbing that data, understanding the frequency of failure, what types of failures you're experiencing. We use that to really, enhance the PM process that we first put in, and use the systematic nature of going after our issues. Understanding the downtimes, you'll find that there's some downtimes that are associated with machinery, as well as systematic type failures, and utilizing that data. You make some very intelligent decisions when you have data to work with, and that makes it easy to start gaining the confidence of the organization and getting them on board for making that shift.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about reducing maintenance downtime. For people who are looking to reduce maintenance downtime, where do you recommend they start?
So, maintenance people are a lot like detectives. They're tasked with having to go out and fix things with very little information. So one of the things that I like to really focus on is one, setting a process for gathering information and carrying out the process to complete work. The mechanics have to go out and collect data and diagnose it, collect those clues as a detective. So the ability to provide information, good information from the operators who are working the equipment, who are out there all the time, giving them the ability to provide that information on what's going wrong, what are some of the symptoms that they experience before a breakdown, and then providing that in a work request. As well, anytime that multiple people, multiple functions are involved, you always have the ability for, or the possibility for communication to break down and the process stall out. And, downtime, you're always working on trying to prevent it, but there's going to be times where it happens anyway. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a very efficient process for communicating and working through that process. So as you work through the work order process of making a request and scheduling it and carrying out the work, the ability for a system to do communication and provide notification so that process can be carried out quickly is very important. As well, like maintenance planners, they have a responsibility for working with the production people. And there's a lot of going back and forth and negotiating time for that downtime. So the ability for when requests are put in to be able to let the maintenance department know when might be a good time, or provide the schedule for work orders and things of that sort, so you can work around those schedules together. This is very important. A lot of the systems today help streamline that work order process and communicate the steps and handoffs. So having those types of systems that allow sharing of data, sharing of things like equipment manuals, reference documents that are all going to help with carrying out the process quickly, I think that's really the starting point.
Yeah, definitely, I'd agree. I'd like to move into another key concern we heard from attendees very related to that, and that is, how do you address the people issue? As employees retire and we see skilled tradespeople decrease, how do you get started with that?
Yeah, it's a very big problem nowadays. As things become more computerized and there's much more appealing careers in manufacturing. A lot of people don't want to get into these technical type roles, being mechanics, and these technical skills are becoming very, very scarce, and every year more and more people are retiring out of these types of roles. And with that, knowledge goes out the door, a lot of knowledge and experience, which maintenance is very reliant on, understanding of the machinery, how it works, all the fine details on doing a proper repair, torques and alignments and things of that sort, some of this precision type activity that people gain through experience, that's lost. So as the systems go in place, it's very important to have standards, procedures, SOPs, work instructions on how to carry out PMs. I mentioned the ability to reference useful information like machinery manuals and drawings. Oftentimes those are tucked away in an office somewhere and, or lost. Mm-hmm. And that's very valuable information that if you can put that in the hands of the technician, it frees up the time. It makes the time to resolve problems much quicker, instead of operators or technicians having to go out to the work floor and view the information or view the machine and then go hunt for information, and a lot of back and forth before a problem's fixed. If you can provide that information in a easy to access method, it's going to make the process so much quicker.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about downtime. We hit on the people piece. Now I really would like to know, how do we shift from a reactive approach to preventive and then eventually predictive maintenance? How does that work?
Well, I think one of the first things is really understanding the value associated with making that shift. Reactive maintenance is very costly. often 3 to 10 times greater than preventive or predictive. And I mentioned equipment is constantly speaking to you, and you got to be listening, or else that equipment's going to, it's going to find a way to get your undivided attention. And, getting out there, understanding, putting in some simple processes to stabilize your process. Oftentimes, most downtimes are created by poor cleaning standards, poor lubrication practices, and these are easy things to put in place. So once you have the systems in place to manage and schedule these kind of activities and provide those instructions, having the right content is gonna help really stabilize the process. And once you have those things in place and the maintenance department is carrying those things out, you can start shifting some of that work down to the operator level, implementing things like autonomous maintenance. That gives the operators on the plant floor more knowledge of mechanics and so forth, and what are the things, the signs that need to be responded to, because they're all the time, and you can be much more responsive in that way. So that also starts allowing to free up time for mechanics to start doing, additional training, upping their skills. I mentioned potentially training them in things like infrared and vibration analysis. In some environments, these can be extremely beneficial. So it all kind of works together, and again, having those systems and shifting some of that low-level work down to the operator level, and upping the skills of the maintenance department. And this was a lot more difficult before, to set up a predictive program. It always requires some skill set, but you almost had to dedicate a person to go around and start doing routes with infrared equipment and vibration equipment. And that was still periodic. Nowadays, with IoT devices and some of the modern systems out there, it enables autonomous collection of predictive indicators like temperature and vibration, as well as being able to connect to machinery and monitor conditions like various sensors, for example, tracking things like differential pressure to identify if a filter has been starting to get blocked or blown out. There's a lot of different, much more technical ways and easier ways to do this that really frees up time of the maintenance organization even further.
That's great, Corey. I really appreciate your perspective. I think it's really helpful to get direct feedback from somebody who's done this before. And what I'd like to do now is bring in Bill too. TrakSYS is a software platform, just again for the audience here, that was designed with those best practices in mind. So it is a tool that reinforces the behavior that Corey was talking about and those processes in preventive maintenance. And so, Bill, I'd love to have you, chat with us a little bit more about TrakSYS. Can you kind of walk us through the product?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Catherine. All right. Hi, everyone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few slides here talking about the TrakSYS product. Assume some of you may be not familiar with it. We'll get you a baseline here, and then we'll go into the product actually, and myself and Corey will show you some nice things related to this maintenance topic. So first off, a really high-level architecture here. You've got TrakSYS, the Traxxas Platform in the center. This is the software product that Parsec creates here and has been doing for many years. It is a full MOM MES type software. So we cover lots of different topics, and you'll see a little bit of that as we go through the product and towards the end of the webinar. But we're talking about maintenance here. So for example, out on the right, TrakSYS is able to connect to other business systems that are related to maintenance, certainly ERP for production orders, possibly for parts and inventory purposes, possible external maintenance systems, CMMS systems, certainly something that would be relevant for this topic that we would connect to. And so we have a variety of mechanisms and means and services to connect to those systems and exchange data, bring data in, push data out. Over on the left, you've got the user base of TrakSYS represented, and they're going to be accessing the software through a variety of devices and using web browsers. So we're going to definitely see how that works. And so you've got people on the plant floor, you've got supervisors, maintenance technicians in this case, reporting users, all accessing the information being collected and processed by TrakSYS via browser. And then down at the bottom, the connection to the process. So TrakSYS is a real-time manufacturing system. So we're going to be connecting to the actual manufacturing process, inventory systems, quality systems, warehouse shipping, all of these things, and we're doing that through a variety of technologies. You can see them listed there: OPC, IoT, APIs, all sorts of different mechanisms. So this is really, in a nutshell, the big picture of TrakSYS. We're talking about maintenance today, so certainly many of the things Corey was talking about were leading to having better systems in place to keep track of this data. And so TrakSYS, being a real-time system connected to the manufacturing, can do really well in some of these areas. We're going to see how we can connect to equipment and bring data in to help with the maintenance process. We're going to see how we can set up visualizations and aids for operators and maintenance technicians to move through the maintenance request workflows and PMs and things of that nature, and then all sorts of different reporting and visualization capabilities of TrakSYS. And you can see in the imagery over here to the bottom left, it is a mobile friendly system, responsive. You can access all of these things that we're going to show you from really nearly any type of device, and that really brings a lot of advantages, and by spreading out this maintenance capability to people where they need to access it. And lastly, how does TrakSYS fit in with sort of dedicated CMMS systems? So certainly we're going to be showing you a lot of maintenance capability in TrakSYS, and one of the questions that may come up is, I don't get it. Is TrakSYS a CMMS, or does it replace my CMMS, or does it work with CMMS? And the answer really is, it can be all of the above. We have a really important philosophy here at Parsec and with the TrakSYS product, and that is that we understand that there are many different sort of scenarios that we're going to walk into. Some of our customers have already CMMS systems in place that they're using, and they're happy with some of the functionality, but maybe they're in the back room and they're not out on the plant floor, and they can't really collect real-time data well. So we can integrate with CMMS systems. We can enhance and augment them. We've got other customers who just don't want to go through the investment for a full CMMS and want to do some maintenance functionality directly in a tool like TrakSYS. We can do that as well. So as we go through the demonstrations, we show you things. Keep in mind this integration between TrakSYS and CMMS is very flexible. We can do things completely within TrakSYS. We can integrate with existing CMMSs and really everything in between there. So a really important point. And with that, we're going to actually flip over and show you some actual screens in the software. Let me move over to my browser here. And I'm going to give you a really quick orientation on what we're looking at here. As I mentioned, TrakSYS is the user interface for TrakSYS is web-based. So anyone from a configurer to an administrator to a plant floor operator to a maintenance technician to a supervisor, they're all going to access this through some sort of device, through their web browser. Very simple to get to. And they're going to enter into the application, which we're showing here. We're looking at the Orange County Vitamin plant. It's a plant that does batching, tableting, and packaging of vitamins. And as you can see in the TrakSYS interface across the top, the model of the operations of the plant are modeled out in the navigation. You can see familiar things like the batching area, the tableting area, the packaging area, some information about warehouse and planning, and then finally over here, we've got configuration, developer, and administration. These are all the functionalities of TrakSYS from the end user to the back end, all represented here. And we're not going to dive in deep into the innards and the the insides of TrakSYS here, but we're gonna jump over to the maintenance section, and in the maintenance section, we've got a variety of screens for maintenance management and supervisors. I'm gonna turn this back over to Corey to walk you through a few of these screens now, and I'll come back a little later and show you a little bit more.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, as Bill mentioned, TrakSYS has the ability to interface with existing CMMS systems to enhance that experience. Oftentimes, visualization and the real-time nature of those systems are limited. So TrakSYS can enhance those activities, or activities can be carried out in the TrakSYS functionality. So what you're seeing here is representative of like a maintenance manager dashboard that allows, visualization of the key and critical information for that role. So they can be much more responsive to the activities that are going on in the organization. So what you see here, again, this information can be pulled from a CMMS or generated internally through the data collection of TrakSYS. And we have the ability to track things like on-time completion of PMs, which is very important. Understand, where work orders are in the process of being requested, scheduled, and assigned to employees. So I'm just going to jump off and show a little bit of a functionality. As we mentioned, the ability to connect to various data sources is one of the strong advantages of a system like TrakSYS. We have the ability to cross-reference jobs out on the line, so work orders, and this allows identifying where there might be changeovers or planned downtime in the process, so we can take advantage of these downtimes on the lines to schedule in PMs and such. Very nice tool to be able to leverage that data and that information from the potentially ERP systems. As well, once the work is assigned, we have the ability to schedule it to our maintenance operators, our technicians, so we can maximize their utilization throughout the workday. And in the main dashboard, everybody's installations could be potentially different based upon what's important, but these are some examples of frameworks that would be useful for, identifying how well the maintenance organization is performing. So identifying where the majority of the work is happening, whether it's urgent type work or more PM based, as well as understanding systematic failures within the maintenance organization, collecting information from the plant floor in forms of journals that are related to maintenance, understanding where I have my largest downtimes within the factory, measuring responsiveness of the maintenance department to the downtime requests, and tracking the work order completion throughout the day. We can also display high priority work orders, so those are apparent in their completion, as well as upcoming work orders. So this is just kind of an example of frequently used data of the maintenance department, again, to be much more responsive and improve the effectiveness of that department. Every maintenance organization can have various roles, and oftentimes these roles have different information that they need. So these are very easily configured to fit what's important to the specific organization. So on a supervisor dashboard, they have ability to track work orders, their completion, be able to look at insight into the work order, who it's assigned to, when it's scheduled, and a variety of information associated with the specific work orders. Technicians who are mobile, they can also be notified of the work that's assigned to them. So let's take a look at Ernie here. We can see all the different work orders that are assigned to him, the priority levels, the scheduled times that those work orders are to be completed. So again, very quick reference of information that's going to be very useful to all the different roles. The nice thing, these systems, again, can be accessible through mobile and also deliver information, things like SOPs on how to complete the work. We talked about standardization and having work instructions and accessibility to information right at your fingertips. And that's one of the things TrakSYS can provide within its interfaces. So with that, I'm going to turn things back to Bill to walk through a few other areas.
Thanks, Corey. So these are all very good examples of maintenance functionality from the supervisory level, work order, workflows, and management. But I'm going to bring you over and show you a little bit of a different spin and why many of our customers are choosing to use TrakSYS alongside with a CMMS system. And to do that, we're going to go down onto the plant floor. So as I navigate over to this packaging section, what we've entered into now is more of the traditional sort of on the ground, HMI plant floor type screens where operators and resources that are running the production interact with a system like TrakSYS. They are starting production orders. They're keeping track of real-time stoppages and data flowing from the plant floor, not necessarily, specific to maintenance yet. You can see an example of the dashboard in the packaging area showing me high-level information about the 4 packaging lines. If I dive down into line 1, we can see a really common example of the main dashboard on the plant floor, where operators are able to start and end production orders, see a lot of telemetry coming from how the line is running currently at this point in time, production progress. And over on the right, we start getting into some interesting things. We get into task management, so things that the operators are having to do on a regular basis, and that journal entry functionality Corey was showing. So operators can pass information down to other shifts, but also now we're starting to see how we can tie into a maintenance system. These journal entries, the relevant journal entries, are now showing up over in the maintenance dashboard as well. And you noticed in the maintenance dashboard, there was some information on downtime and stoppages. That information, unlike in a traditional CMMS where that information might have to be keyed in manually or there's a lot of integration that has to occur, that information is automatically flowing into TrakSYS in a typical implementation. So you can see where now the real-time aspect is really fitting in well with maintenance. And then in addition, we go over here on the menu to the maintenance section, we're going to show you some other functionality that really makes sense on the plant floor that's very difficult to achieve with the traditional CMMS. Okay, so in this example, what we're showing here is a screen where plant floor operators, not maintenance technicians, can actually directly interact with the maintenance functionality. And so if there's a problem on the line, they can actually request that maintenance comes, and we're going to see all sorts of things like tracking the duration that takes. So I'll go ahead and make a maintenance request here by pressing this button. So the line goes down, we're going to call for maintenance. We're going to make that request. We're going to fill some information in about what's the issue, maybe what machine is affected, priority level, so forth, any notes that the maintenance guy might like to know about. Hit request. And what's happened here is TrakSYS is able to launch off many different types of communication. We could send a notification via email or text message to a group of users. We could actually reach out into another CMMS system and create a work order, which would in turn probably trigger other types of notifications. In any case, after that request is made, you can see TrakSYS is actually tracking the response time here. So we can do some analysis of how long it's taking for maintenance to arrive at the line in different shifts and different parts of the production process. When maintenance arrives, we can have the maintenance guy click the arrive button to stop that timer. Now, the maintenance person who arrives can log in as who they are. So click that. That'll assign the login over here to the assigned field, and they can maybe alter some of the information that was put in before, mark them as arrived. And then you can see a second timer is starting for resolution time. So as the maintenance operation occurs, we're tracking the duration of that, again, feeding all that data back into the central Traxxas database for analysis and reporting. All right. At the same time, we see some other relevant information over here that might help the maintenance person or the operators in relation to the issues that are occurring. These are data points that are being tracked by our historian. You can see some more downtime information being brought in this week for the current shift, for the current production order. Really, any types of different scenarios can be covered here. So this is sort of a really interactive way to bring maintenance down to the plant floor. The other thing I want to show you is on preventative maintenance. So traditionally, preventative maintenance is done, in a very sort of formulaic way. Someone guesses, okay, we're gonna do preventative maintenance on this machine every week, because that's really the easiest way to do it sort of manually. But now that we're down in a system like Traxxas and we can reach in and have real-time communication with the systems, you can see over here on the right, from the filler, labeler, caser, hopper, our key pieces of equipment, we're able to measure usage on that equipment. So whatever the key sort of metric is, so run hours is a very typical one. You can see we're tracking, and we set different thresholds for the different pieces of equipment. So when that piece of equipment reaches a threshold here, it enters into a warning state that might send a message out saying, hey, a PM is going to be due soon. When it crosses another threshold, it can automatically generate a PM either in Traxxas or out in an external CMMS system. And that PM can be based on more relevant real-time information than just sort of a guess on a fixed interval here. So again, this screen showing that interconnectivity with what's really happening on the line, making those maintenance activities, and the scheduling of those maintenance activities much more accurate and timely. All right, so we've shown you some really great things in the product, some really great examples of how Traxxas can fulfill that. I'm going to turn this back over to Corey one more time to finish you up with one more slide here. Corey?
Thanks, Bill.
Take it away.
So, just one of the takeaways of today's event, we've really focused on maintenance today. We saw a little bit more of the system in terms of OEE, but Traxxas itself is really a unified manufacturing operations management platform with a variety of different functionality. So a lot more capabilities within the system to really leverage comprehensive data out on the plant floor and utilize that in a variety of different solutions. So certainly these are things that you may also be interested in. We're happy to have some follow-up discussions.
Great, thanks, Corey. So I'm going to give you a last chance, everybody, to chat me your questions as you have them. I'm going to start with the questions that we have already received as we wrap things up here. So if you have a question and you want to ask it, again, right-hand side of your screen, just hit the chat button and we'll go ahead and answer those for you. So I'd like to start with a couple that we have so far and kick those off. So Corey, you mentioned that you were a factory manager. What do you recommend in a platform and why?
So, today's systems, I think the big advantages now are data, whether it's, structure and how to complete work, or as I mentioned, the information associated with making intelligent decisions and carrying out work. I think it's important to be able to access that data very seamlessly and quickly, as well as the mobile aspect nowadays. Maintenance people are mobile. They're constantly going out, looking at various machinery, working on various machinery, and to be able to access that information and not have to run back to an office or jump on a computer, run through a file folder. That mobile ability, I think, is very important, as well as the connectivity of being able to monitor conditions more continuously versus a maintenance manager or a maintenance technician having to go out and run routes, and maybe they get around a facility to all of the machines in a week time period. Well, those gaps offer abilities for conditions to change and maintenance people to miss it. So the ability to cover more ground through data management systems is going to make maintenance departments much more effective.
That's great feedback. We have another really good question here. It's basically asking about big companies' use of other ERP platforms. So the question says, usually the big companies like SAP come in with a maintenance system. How does TrakSYS communicate and send receive with that kind of a module?
I'll take that. So sure, when we talked about integrating with CMMS systems, certainly there are many different types out there. SAP's maintenance module is one that we see commonly. And this question is really a general answer for communicating with any external systems. TrakSYS contains a service called the Data Management Service, and this component of TrakSYS's job is really to exchange data and configuration and master data with external systems like CMMS, like ERP. So we'll pull production orders in from SAP. If we're communicating with SAP maintenance, we would set up a stream, bidirectionally or unidirectionally with that. And the technology used is going to really be dependent on that customer's infrastructure. So it may be XML files, it may be direct API connections, maybe flat files getting, produced by some other kind of middleware. We can exchange and connect with really anything. There's a lot of details to that, obviously, and how that's implemented, but certainly we've got examples of communicating with SAP in a large variety of projects. So that would include the maintenance module as well.
Perfect. And we'll take one or two more questions as they come in. Another one that just popped in, which is a really great question, Gordon. Do you feel that a customer needs to be at a certain point in a journey to TPM to gain value from TrakSYS? And the second part is, do you think it accelerates the journey, or is it agnostic about TPM?
No, that is a great question. In terms of implementation, I always try to understand where our clients are in terms of their cultural evolution and maturity in terms of maintenance or whichever solution we're looking at. And the nice thing about TrakSYS, and specifically the maintenance area, is it has some foundational things in terms of, just work order management, scheduling. These are, I believe, just basic maintenance foundational business tools that are required. So people starting off in their journey are going to utilize things like that. As preventive maintenance gets into play and systems are more stabilized, utilizing information like mean time between failure analysis, that kind of gets into kind of an intermediate level where you're using that data to really enhance your PMs, like the content of what's in the PMs to address specific failures you're experiencing, as well as adjusting the frequency of your PM to really match the frequency of failures that you're having. And then as you become, move into kind of the TPM philosophy, things like OEE, baselining your information and addressing that data to make specific improvements, as well as the autonomous maintenance aspect. Once those foundational things are in place and you can start shifting some of that work from technicians to operators, those systems are there and makes the process of transition much faster. So that's a little bit of kind of your second question. And then as you get much more sophisticated in terms of implementing predictive tools and condition monitoring, that's kind of a higher level and further into the journey. Those parts of the system can be added on. TrakSYS is a modular platform which allows you to grow with it as your needs change and implement. You don't have to implement every piece of it. You can implement what is a priority for you, but it can certainly jump you much further and much faster through the process of achieving excellence for sure.
Great, and I'm going to take our last question. There's a few more that came in, so we'll go ahead and reach out to you directly, Rashad and Mario. But Luciano asked a good question that I want to end on because I want to make sure that we get you back into the rest of your day. And it's basically, can you talk a little bit quickly about the architecture or just the basic setup that a plant needs to have in order to implement a system like TrakSYS?
Sure, I'll take this one. So certainly this is a deeper subject, and I encourage any of you, if you're interested in looking into TrakSYS deeper, just reach out to the team here after. We'll have some contact information for you, and we can set up some further webinars. But I can talk about it briefly. The Traxxas Platform is very capable and has a lot of functionality. However, it's very simple. In a nutshell, it's based in a SQL Server database, so all of the configuration and data that's captured is in a standard SQL Server database. There's a handful of data collection services that do some of the connectivity to the plant floor or to those business systems we talked about. And then there's a web application, which is really what we clicked through before. And that single web application, provides all of the really user interaction from admin, configuration, real time, and reporting and analysis. So in most implementations, this is all of these things I just described to you are able to be installed on a single server on premises on site. It can certainly scale up in larger implementations. It can scale, so it can be more powerful servers. Virtualization can scale out. We can take these components and distribute them over, several different servers. But the vast majority of typical installations are single servers. So really not a major complexity in terms of hardware architecture. And then, of course, there's some connectivity things that we would have to, get into depending on what types of systems we're connecting to, things like OPC drivers and that nature. So, in summary, we've done a lot of work over the years to make TrakSYS a very modern and simple platform to install, especially in comparison with its complexity.
Perfect. Bill, Corey, thank you so much. I think your feedback and your insight both into the processes that many of our attendees are going through, as well as how a platform might work and fit into the environment they already have, has been really helpful. There are more questions, so we will reach out to you individually for those. If you'd like to send a few more, please feel free to do so. I popped up on the screen here an email address and a phone number. So if you'd like to talk to us on the phone, feel free to give us a call. If you would rather send an email, that email address hits me and my team here, and we'll make sure that we answer those for you. So we'd like to thank everybody again for joining us today. I think it was some really good and helpful information. We hope you feel the same way. And keep an eye out in your inbox. We'll have another webinar in about a month or so. We look forward to having you join us on the next one also. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and take care.